Lyudmyla, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show.
Hello, Knut. Very, very happy to be here, and everybody, hi, who listening us today.
Yes, super happy to have you here too. I've been wanting to talk to you since at least Bitcoin Atlantis last year, but we haven't really had the chance to have a proper long-form conversation with or without recording it. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Me too.
We talked briefly in Helsinki, but yeah, first of all, since this is your first time on, I'd like to give you to give a quite thorough introduction of yourself to our audience, if you will.
Sure, Knut. So I'm a human rights defender and Bitcoin advocate. Right now, I call myself even freedom tech advocate because we live in a world where digital rights means a lot. Every single step of our life right now digitally recorded, and it's so important to defend these rights. It's so important to speak about it loudly because it's quite silently, all of these regulations coming in and putting rules in our life we are not really aware of. Why I'm so care about it? Because I myself, as a human rights defender, for 15 last years, I was doing human rights work, humanitarian work. And I would say my year, I was very much focused specifically on privacy once I understood and get decision of the court, which shows that for my human rights work, which was very effective in recording of testimonies of victims of torture, mass shooting in many countries, I became a victim together with my team, with my organization, which is registered both in European Union and also in US, from different kind of strategically legal attacks. And the main purpose for these attacks was to get my travel, communication, and my financial data. It's not my first time when I knew that I'm different kind of sophisticated attack experience, but this one was one of the most, I would say, terrifying because it's use entire your behavior data from digital world and whatever you move physically. So this was one of my biggest concern and focus I was working last year. In general, we defend human rights in many countries, specifically Eurasia, when it comes to release political prisoners. When I say political prisoners, it means, first of all, those who protect human rights, those who oppose corruption, expose corruption, or they are donors, they philanthropists, or they are entrepreneurs who refuse to cut off internet during peaceful protest, those who propose legal aid or did some small donations for families of political prisoners. Those people became victims of harassment, abuse of anti-money laundering, country-based regulation. They claimed falsely money laundering and so on and so on. So my role was to bring these voices, to document these cases, and to include names of political prisoners in trade agreements, in bilateral relationship between European Union and, for example, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Russia, at the time of Ukraine, when the Ukraine was under Yanukovych time, for example, and many, many other countries. And it was very effective. It was so much effective that at some point, regimes started to think how to actually eliminate myself, how to make harm for my family members, how to destroy my organization, my team, my business. I was also a successful businesswoman. From this, I was able to donate a lot of money for my foundation, provide, for example, humanitarian aid for Ukraine, precisely because I was not only just human rights defender, but also philanthropist. Russia accused me, together with my organization, to be threats to their defense capacity, financial capacity, and national security. And they prosecute also my family members, my mother, my brother, and other family members, friends, those who were also donated to, for example, humanitarian aid for Ukraine or for protecting human rights in Ukraine during Euromaidan in 2013. And afterwards, my international campaign to release political hostages, those who was kidnapped by Russia, like one of the most prominent elections of. So we were doing all of this work, and the regime tried to undermine our work, tried to find out how to threat us physically. There was some explosion in my offices. There was, gradually growing this tension, what to do to stop for my activities. And because we were effective in releasing political prisoners, in defending those who politically prosecute, we were able to defend ourselves. It's not like I'm just a victim. I never want somebody to perceive me as a victim. I'm a fighter, and I write reports, I present and expose different kind of wrongdoing, And together with parliamentarians, where I'm blessed to be very much connected because of my human rights work and research work in the past as a PhD student in Poland, I was able to build quite significant connections. And this is what helped me to protect both those hundreds of political prisoners, change regulations in many countries. For example, we were first to expose violation of Interpol wanted lists. So we provided remedies against weaponization of these police institutions, international police institution. It's still possible to weaponize it. It's still possible to use it against peaceful protesters who live in their country or oppositioners who are living abroad. But at least you have mechanism how to protect yourself. Before you would wait even 6 years and you will never get any response. Just in the same way, like anti-money laundering counterterrorism regulation works, and financial institutions cannot give you answer why they close your bank account, why they, for example, deprive you the right to have financial services in general, and so on and so on. So with this understanding that from the side of regimes, at that time it was 3 regimes, then gradually with the last 16 years of activity of foundation, it's overall 7 different authoritarian regimes were attempting to stop my activity and my team activities. And they failed. And I'm really proud to say so, because first of all, I used privacy payment instruments, privacy communication. I really care where I'm traveling, and I'm able to do so and teach other people how to do so with actually, and thanks actually, these privacy tools. For this reason of Bitcoin, for me, it's not something abstract. I'm not investing in Bitcoin, but it's my main tool how I protect myself from different kind of attacks. At some point, it was the only tool how I was able to survive, because as many Europeans, I was very comfortable living in the very heart of Europe and Brussels, thinking that, okay, with all my connections, even with these attacks where these 3 regimes at that time, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and Polish regime, they were accusing me as national security threats. They were blaming me that I'm undermining their regimes and so on because of my human rights work, because of criticism coming to their violations of human rights and rule of law in their countries. So what they did, they abused anti-money laundering counterterrorism regulation, this trust between states, where all your data, financial data, first of all, flow in with no remedies just because of trust to other party or to other state. And this is what those regimes did with me in 2018. They organized smear campaign in more than 20 languages against me. I won all possible courts on defamation. And with this decision of the courts, which I spent 6 years spending my money, spending my time, expertise, I can do nothing. I was not able to restore my right for banking. I was not able to restore my reputation. So, and this is what motivated me so much to reform anti-money laundering regulation, reform Financial Action Task Force, creating these rules. And of course, first of all, in order to do so, you need to survive. You need to be able to resist. How you do it when you don't have traditional financial instruments? You do it with Bitcoin. You're gonna discover what is the Bitcoin, because it's the only way how you can survive and hold accountable those who prosecute you. And this is the reason why I'm teaching other people how to use it. This is the reason why I'm advocating so much in front of regulators of Western countries that we have to have safe environment. In front of Congress, I was speaking how Bitcoin played crucial role to protecting me from transnational financial repressions happen against me, both in Belgium, in European countries, but also in US, in Miami, and in Washington, where was attempt to get my travel, communication, and financial data. Because of successful advocacy, I was able to prevent it. But how many people know that something like this can happen with them? How do they have instruments to prevent it? Do they have connections? Do they have understanding how to prevent these leaks happening? So my goal is not just to fix my problem, but actually to find overall solution. So we at least have main jurisdictions where human rights are respected, like US and European Union, safe. No matter how we doubt about the safety, it's good we doubt because we need to improve all the time. But it's really important to keep this environment safe so we can actually create, we can develop ourselves, we can use different tools. and we can find safe haven to raise our children and actually develop as a personality. So it might be very broad, but I wanted to draw this picture to show different experiences, different activities we do. A part of this we treat as a freedom technology, not only Bitcoin, but also everything what gives you privacy of communication, digital world, but it actually also privacy of your movement. So whenever you have bionic hand, everything is going to be connected to the internet at some point, and you want to have control on your body. So it's so important that from the moment one, you understand this and you know how to keep your data safe, that your body is listening to you. It's you giving these orders, not somebody else. So this is the overall concept. And this is why we moved from just privacy and just only BTC coalition, building true change coalition, to concept of freedom technology embassy. We ambassadors of freedom tech, raising awareness and bringing privacy as a main priority in a digital world.
Wow, there is so much to unpack here. And of course, to me, it sounds awful with all these attacks and explosions and stuff. Like, it's very hard for me to relate to. But like, I'm curious, you have this impressive CV with the university degrees and everything, and then this quick, successful career, and then engaging in all of this humanitarian work. I'm curious as to like where you see yourself politically. Like how has that changed from when you were in university, say, to now? Like, do you consider yourself a libertarian? Do you consider like states to be legitimate at all? Like, where are you on that spectrum? And do you think this is a fight that is actually winnable from within this system we're in? Or do we have to be rebels forever? Like, what are your thoughts there?
First of all, I think, historically, I dreamed to be human defender since I was a child. So it has also family experience. Why so? Because one of my family members was protected in this moment when we needed the most, and also human rights of my family member was violated. And we got support from people we never expected. And, I came from Sevastopol, where raid attack on family business was normal thing, when your family members can be easily kidnapped by basically police, or they call themselves sanitary services, tax services, tax police, and so on. So at this moment, you just don't feel any protection from the state. You expect only threats from the state. So this is an environment where I was growing. And with this understanding, when you see somebody who is coming and who said, your family member did so much good thing that a lot of people ask us to come. And this is the reason why we are. And you even forget to ask a name of this person. You don't know anything. You're just shocked that somebody coming and saying we actually did it. You can come and see your family member. It's like, it's changing your life, It's really changing your life. And I repeated this model. I was this kind of person for many other members of the families. I was together with them to release their family members who was taken as a political hostages, who were prosecuted. And I tried to help those who family members refused to protect them. This is the most difficult case. When you became lonely in your fight and you can count only on yourself, and you even don't believe that somebody will come. So it's really good to be this hope. I think I implemented this. I did my homework with my child trauma. So foundation was this kind of thing that you can do a lot of, rehabilitation process. My foundation with human rights work, humanitarian work, I think it was a part of this process. So right now, politically, I'm more focusing on a future generation. What will happen with me? What will happen with my future family? With everybody whom I love in a digital world. This is where we come in. So I see my role right now moving more from the direction where I used to be just saving, protection specific people, for more creating conditions or caring or raising awareness about conditions we really have to protect. And one of the key aspects for this is to create a good environment, to keep this environment, not to lose it, first of all, for developers who provide us technical solutions, right? Like Bitcoin developers, Nostr developers, privacy communication developers, they have to have safe environment. Even if they think that Europe is not safe and the US is not safe and so on, they just have never lived or didn't have this real repression. And luckily, they don't have this real repression experience from other sides and countries I used to work. So it's not my goal for them to experience it. My goal is to make this safe environment they continue to create. And we have ability to choose what to use to protect our privacy. So I would have at some point the ability to say, my child, look, you use Bitcoin, and this is how you protect your financial privacy and your actually future savings. You use this and this app for communication, and nobody would be able to destroy your privacy. Nobody will actually violate your rights, and so on and so on. So this is my right now goal. So I would say it may sound very personal, but I think everybody of us doing these small steps will create a better future. I don't see myself, at least at the moment, as a political figure. I think it's enough for me a bit. I have enough political connections, and if I want to do something, I can do it for sure. I know how to build these coalitions, everything. I know procedures very well. This is the reason why all these 7 countries, 7 authoritarian regimes were going after me, because I really know how procedures works and how to make them work to hold accountable bad guys. And I'm teaching a lot. Interns coming to our foundation, so they became good, business people, or for example, they policymakers, journalists. It depends on profile of person coming to our foundation and what experience they're looking for. So this is right now my number one task. With regard of state or not state, I would always say, maybe I will be very controversial on Bitcoin podcast saying this, but if you don't like state, you just go to Mali and see how it's to live without state. It's not easy. Of course, it's very extreme. I think we all want to drive on the road and drive safe. We want to have some rules. Bitcoin by itself, it's actually a very strong rule, because if you don't proof of work, if you just proof of talk, you would never get your block. Right? So there is a rule, and we all follow rules. If you don't deliver, you just get nothing. And I think it's a brilliant rule. This is actually example of what rules has to be established. Rules should have common sense. And this is where we should go to this direction. We shouldn't question state. We should make state actually comfortable for us to live in, where rules serving people, not serving for a certain group of people, And this is something what could happen only with mobilization, with consensus mechanism, right? Where proof of work is actually main thing, not just what we have everywhere, proof of talk. This is what I usually like to joke it with politicians. Guys, I like those guys from your political group who are proof of work, and they don't get it, my message, but then I explain them and decide to laugh. This is how they discover Bitcoin, by the way. And this is how I also educate them about Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, I understand the perspective. And by the very nature of what you do, it is political, because you are trying to change the systems from within, and not like only bypassing them, but making it possible for people to bypass certain draconian things by changing the system from within. So I guess a more nuanced question would be like political hostage, for instance. Where do you draw the line? If you're forced to pay taxes, does that count as a political hostage? If you're forced to send your kids to school for 12 years, to public school for 12 years, and otherwise men with guns come and take you away, is that a political hostage? Where do you draw the line between like political hostage and just law-abiding citizen?
So in case of political hostages, my definition and definition of Open Dialogue Foundation, we say when the state takes somebody as a basically prisoner, as a hostage, to force you to change your behavior, and they use severe instruments. They put person in prison, they torture, they kill, they really isolate it from communication. So they make your life impossible. In case of taxation, in case of drafting young people, to army, it's different because you still, at the end of the day, you constituency and you have all instruments, no matter you like it or you don't like it, execute you or not execute, you can change the rules. And every time, even if you don't like entire your parliament, you still have ability to campaign to change it. And this is the beauty of the process. If you don't want to change the parliament, go to change this rule, collect enough signatures and do campaign and actually change this rule. And this is what all the time we are doing. So it's, of course, time consuming, but it's possible. And I think this is the beauty of democracy. It's very difficult to change Bitcoin code, right? It's very difficult, but you need to have consensus and you're doing it. The same with every society, which actually have this privilege. It's privilege. It's not something what other society have. They not even get this privilege to be able to change any rules. They live in like absolutely 100% of hostages. And it's majority of the world. It's like small piece of territories in the map of the world is actually so-called democracies with a lot of troubles, with a lot of problems, of course. But still you have ability to change these rules. You have this consensus mechanism, how to have impact. And it's laziness. It's really laziness of, for example, Europeans not to advocate for their right. When you speak about, for example, chat control regulation, as Open Dialogue Foundation, we're very much involved in this process. You know that this regulation came to us, the idea of this regulation came to us from the US, from American corporation, basically even charity, where two Hollywood stars, one of them is Anthony Kushner. He was very much connected with Didi, participated in more than 20 years, and he's a beautiful, different kind of, I would say, weird parties. And he was the main promoter of software, which was so easily, with his charming smile, adopted and promoted by European Commission in the European Union. And this is why we all right now have this discussion with we can space and pay for this software just because somebody did successful lobbying many years ago. And we as Europeans didn't prevent it. We didn't care. We didn't try to execute our rights. It didn't cost much actually for this American charity to do because it's almost empty market in Europe who is doing lobbying. Who is doing lobbying in the European Parliament? It's Chinese, it's Kazakh, it's before Russian, it's nowadays Azerbaijani. So all possible regimes, but not Europeans themselves. Europeans, for some reasons, they don't want to care about it. Completely different situation in US Senate and Congress. You have plenty of Americans. Every single American citizen in every day can come to Congress. He doesn't need any kind of registration. If he wants to speak with his representative as a constituency, there is always a person in the office who will listen to him. And nobody will stop him, like here in European Parliament or in Bundestag or in other parliaments, that he cannot be received. He will be received. And this is also consensus. This is what you have to do and how you impact people who write in rules on your behalf, or you don't do this impact. And somebody writes in rules and you just follow them. So you have this choice. And I think it really has to be responsible for your choices. We can complain a lot about chat control regulation, but it's on our power right now, before October 14, to stop it. To write to the constituency, to your member of European Parliament, member of national parliament, and ask them deliver your voice to the government saying withdraw and completely refuse this chat control regulation. It's possible. And it's doable. It's just one email where you put your name, your signature, you call, and you do it. It's effort. But you have to do it if you want to defend your rights.
So how would anyone know that the rights have already been violated so much so that this becomes impossible? If for instance, if you take the UK, for example, now, where more people are put in prison for things they said online than in Russia last year. Like, that is very alarming to me. And beyond that, that might even mean that it's literally impossible to form this consensus or to rile up enough people or gain enough momentum to actually change that system from within. So how do you know when governments have become so corrupt that you're like beyond the point of redemption? And what happens then? Like, what's the reset button? How do you fix a democracy that has already gone beyond fixing?
So I would maybe sound more optimistic than you a little bit, because still UK cannot compete with Russia. You know, what Russia is doing with people, I think only China can compete.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just taking the devil's advocate position here to clarify.
No, it's okay, but we cannot compare UK with Russia. It's
of course
I see these messages in X, in Damos, and many other social media. It's uncomparable. It's actually very dangerous, because you undervalue, right, what's happening really. And you undermine the will of other people to fight with these violations, what's even happened in UK, or you allow to Russia to cover all these crimes against humanity and human rights violation of freedom of speech, just without any accountability. So it's dangerous for both societies, both for Russia and in UK, and for other societies, because they also feel discouraged. What we have to have, it's honest discussion, and that right now in many Western countries, we see the trend when Chinese-style regulation, North Korea regulation, Russian-style regulations has more advantage, and unfortunately were adopted already, like Cybersecurity UN Convention, which allows them this all insane action for free speech, censorship, collection of data, a very, like abstract accusation, what you committed as a cybersecurity crime, and so on and so on. So these standards came actually from these authoritarian states, and they were able to be very active and effective in their lobby. Again, why? Because Western societies took it as a granted that nothing will change, nothing will be significantly changed in their life if new rules will be adopted, even if they're proposed by such countries like Russia, Belarus, North Korea, and China. It's changing. It's impacting every day of our life, every moment of our life. And that's why my call, and why I'm saying that everybody actually has to open Freedom Tech Embassy and become this ambassador, because you defend, first of all, your rights, rights of your family, rights of your children, everybody whom you love, rights for your development, your business, everything you touch. If you don't do it, who and why should do it instead of you? Because you just delegated? No, these people also the same unprofessional, because they already failed. They already adopted regulation proposed by Russia, China, Belarus, and North Korea. It's already happened. So how you can expect that they will respect your rights, your freedoms? So this is the reason why you should be able to find people who will replace them. It means you have to have courage to become politician, but everybody hates to be politicians. Why in America, with foreigners or even philanthropists, journalists, they decided to become at some point politicians and actually replace those who are violating their rights? And in Europe, nobody can do it. We can. We just need to understand it and move to this direction. It's certain responsibility, but it's an important step. This is changing consensus in our society, changing it in a good way, no matter if it's UK, if it's France, or it's other country. It's about we and our voices represented by certain institutions when we elect these people. And we look carefully what rules they create for us. And we say, yes, I agree with this rule. No, I disagree with this rule. But it's action. If no action, it's just proof of talk. It's not proof of work.
There's a bunch of questions in there. And to just try to answer them from my perspective, like I come from Sweden, which is a very conformist society. Everyone wants to have a mainstream opinion because that's sort of required of you to be in the. What it has led to over the long run is that there's like no party at all, no political party at all in the parliament that actually wants to reduce the size of government. That's just not something that people talk about, which I think makes it very, very depressing for libertarians. All the Swedish and for people leaning towards like a smaller state opinions, like who really wants to reduce the size of the machine itself. So what happens is that all the Swedish libertarians I know of, or all the Swedish freedom lovers in general, they all move. They get out of the country and move somewhere else. I mean, I did. And many of the people I know with similar opinions, they've just given up the fight. So I think there's a lot of that happening too. Like, what if people don't wake up, but instead just give up because they think there's no use? I think that many of them also, especially in the tech sector, like Nostr developers and Bitcoin developers, as you said, and just Nostr and Bitcoin curious people, they probably think it's better to focus on the tools than trying to change the system from within. But like, what's your take there? Like, if I'm a freedom-loving person in the EU, what's the best use of my time to engage politically to try to change the environment, or to just focus on my own life and maybe the freedom tools that are available to me?
So it's difficult for me to expect that I will invent something for Bitcoin, right? I'm not professional at it. You cannot even demand from me. I can use Bitcoin only because it's easy to use. It was not easy, but I found the way how to make it easy for me, right? So it's not why I'm saying it, because I'm trying to explain that I'm not expecting anybody to repeat my path and be an expert in all legislation, how to do so. But what I'm asking for, cooperate with such people like me. Like, I'm cooperating with Bitcoin developers, explain where is difficulty for me, why I cannot use Bitcoin, right? What actually other activists suffering while they were using it, or what's happening with Bitcoin facilitators when regulators of Western countries allow authoritarian regimes, blame these people and say this is facilitators of illicit activities, and everybody who is exchanging donations we send into these activists and then go into cafeteria to change with facilitators of Bitcoin, they both can be arrested. And I, as a human rights defender, cannot do anything, because the way how you release political prisoners, you have a pressure for Western countries to release those who are in hands of dictators. And this has to be kind of not a crime in Western countries, right? So if Bitcoin and technology of privacy criminalize in Western countries, I cannot release those who are politically persecuted by authoritarian states with the pretext of using Bitcoin. So why this analogy? It means that in case of regulation, I'm not expecting anybody to repeat the same what I have. But what I expect, if I, for example, do a call, right now we are promoting different groups or with Bitcoiners participating in advocacy in front of regulators and members of the parliaments, national parliaments of European Union, to stop chat control, to actually remove these repressive burdens on so-called services providers to keep enormous amount of data. Right now, going both public consultations and also this decision-making process in Brussels with regard of chat control. So what they do, they follow basically my instruction. I'm saying, look, this is a list of parliamentarians from your local community. Go to them. And I'm actually even helping them to develop messages. You choose what message you want, but this is what will be effective. Don't put that this is your too emotional words. Don't be anonymous when you send this message. Show your face that you are a real person and you care about privacy. So your politician encourage to promote your voice, because he see real person care about privacy. And he understand why it matters also for him. He see value in this action, in supporting you. So I think it's one option. What Bitcoiners and any kind of person who wants to live in a free world should do. Why moving from one country to another country will not work at some point? For the moment, you have this ability to choose, because at some point you have bad example, what's happened, for example, in Sweden, right? But you have better, for the moment, conditions in other countries. What will happen? If this bad precedent in Europe will be successful for regulators, they will say, okay, nobody was obstructed. We can do the same. We can be lazy and we can not to ask opinion of people, right, around. We just do what we want. It's comfortable for us. And this will degrade more and more societies. At some point, you will have no place where to move. Why I so much admire what Bitcoiners and privacy advocates do in US. You have a lot of troubles in US. It's not like I'm idealizing it. No, there are a lot of human rights issues, right? Like in every country in the world. Just this is the reality. And it was before and it will be after. It's just human nature and it's okay. But the question is where you have instruments to influence rules, where you take proactive position and where you don't. So there is a beautiful, also and very funny anecdote that Americans will die for freedom. France will die for beauty. Russia just dies. And this is really symbolic. We don't want us to perceive that we like beauty, but we're ready to die without our rights. We can do more. We can do more. And we should not leave our beloved home or, cities where we grew up. We just should exercise our rights and make it better.
This reminds me of a Queens of the Stone Age lyric, like one of my favorite rock and roll poets, Josh Homme, who said, "I want something good to die for to make it beautiful to live." Which is, I think Bitcoin is that something good to die for to make it beautiful to live.
No, we should live and enjoy Bitcoin, not die. This is a wrong conception.
No. Yeah. So let's see here. Like the way I see it, and a lot of other Bitcoiners with me, the problems, the political problems, really only exist if you in the on and off ramps between the old system and the new. So if you're actually able to live on Bitcoin and you have acquired them KYC free, and you never trade them back into fiat, you just trade with other Bitcoiners. And if you're using, specifically, I shouldn't say Signal here because that can be compromised.
Exactly.
But Signal clones are being developed on Nostr as we speak. And there are other peer-to-peer technologies, like Keat, for instance, is one, where you can actually live this way as a pure digital nomad. That's too vague. A pure digital sovereign individual that is like unaffected by, especially if you acquire 3 or 4 passports, which you can after you have made enough money to do so. That's always a hurdle, I guess. But to me, like one of the most appealing aspects of Bitcoin was always this, I can walk across any border with 12 words in my head and there's nothing no one on earth can do about it. Like it's truly super powerful. Like you can have all the you can empty how much toothpaste you want at the security check, but you can't take stuff that is in my brain. And I think that's so empowering. And especially given Bitcoin going up in value compared to fiat forever, which I truly expect it will, simply because of the finite nature of it. Like, I think that emancipates people to an extreme extent. And like, I'm curious as to how orange-pilled you are. I mean, you say yourself that you were orange-pilled sort of by necessity, that you needed freedom tools to move money around without being surveyed and without... So would you say, did you have a shitcoin phase? Are you like, how convicted are you about Bitcoin's future success? Like how much do you believe in this thing?
This seems like just I believe in humanity. There is no other choice, there is no second best. This is very easy. Why? Because on my personal experience, on many other, my workers, people who received my donations, so those activists who was coordinating many countries, who was using different cryptocurrencies to fundraise, I saw what's happening with them when their data gotten by authoritarian regimes. They were tortured, they were in prison, they were disappearing. So when I was not able to release some of them at all, because again, there's very negative perception and labeling of cryptocurrencies in Western jurisdictions. It was extremely difficult to help these people who became victims of this kind of attacks. So it's not something abstract for me. I know that in case of the worst scenario, Bitcoin is the only thing what I can count on. But I also know big side of Bitcoin. I see right now this ability to trade with data on darknet, how you can identify people who has no so much sophisticated knowledge how to use Bitcoin, and then everything is trackable. You basically go in around with your open pocket and saying how much money you have, right? Or you had. For many criminals who right now are kidnapping crypto assets holders, this is a roadmap why you should be targeted. Of course, in case of Sweden, it's different story. You guys have everything very transparent. thanks to transparency. There's even worse than Bitcoin, right? Blockchain.
Yeah. This is a side note here. That's called the offentlighetsprincipen, which was implemented, I think, hundreds of years back, or at least 100 years back. It's like one of the foundational things about our democracy was that everything should be transparent to everyone else, so that the people could have a check on the politicians and know exactly what they were making. And so the thought is a good thought, or it was back then. But of course, in the age of the internet, it's super dangerous to have everyone's wealth publicly known. It's just the opposite of, but it came from this high trust in institutions. I mean, Sweden has lived in relative peace for 300 years, which is quite unique in the world to have peace for such a long period of time. And it has led to this extreme high trust in the institutions, which in my opinion is super, super dangerous when they get corrupted. And also with things like this, when all of a sudden the demographic, and even not only in Sweden, but the demographic in all of Europe and free travel throughout Europe leads to exactly this, people being targeted and attacked. But to me, non-KYC Bitcoin is the answer to that. They cannot know how many non-KYC Bitcoins I have. It's
unless
impossible.
Your whole digital data is controlled. And this is what exactly coming here in European Union. This is what, if we don't stop it, how are you going to transact if you communication messengers go in first information to police and then to your person whom you wanted to send it? How are you going to operate on your mobile phone or on your computer if all data, everything cloud services providers will have to send your data before you actually put it in your wallet somewhere else? This is what we see the biggest threats.
Well, the answer to that is either a VPN or getting outside of Europe to do all those transactions. Like just to play the devil's advocate
move
here.
Outside, because outside is worse. This practice coming from China. This is already implemented in Turkey. A lot of Bitcoiners and crypto assets, I would say developers, they say, oh, I will be nomad. I will go into Turkey. I will go to Emirates. Guys, but you are there actually even on the more civilians than ever else. It's just a question, at what moment you're going to be arrested and what data already on you collected, when you are comfortable or not yet uncomfortable because there are bigger fish and more satisfying appetites of this dictator. So you don't want to live until the moment you became so important that you became a victim. You want to have consensus in society where you live and you understand there is no reason that somebody can actually punish me or take over my business or take over my rights and rights of those whom I love and my property and so on. You need to keep this consensus. Imagine if there is no actually those who protect proof of work concept of Bitcoin. It will be destroyed, right? So why our rules, why our consensus of society? If nobody is going to defend it, who why should provide it?
There's two sides to that. I mean, if a politician gets to dictate what a node is or not, and they say that you can run a Bitcoin node in our jurisdiction, then effectively they're setting the rules. So I'm not doing a rebel act anymore by running my node, which is and Bitcoin doesn't work if it's not a rebellious act. It needs to be permissionless. You need to do it without, and of course, everything you say is true. It's way harder if they can spy on you at every level. But I'm still conflicted about this whole.
I would make it easy for you. We need to have jurisdictions where you invent, where you not even consider it if it's illegal or it's not illegal. There should not be discussion if privacy is something has to be or not to be. It's like breathing. It has to be your right. It's like right to be born. It's right to breathe. It's right to walk. You don't have to ask the right to go outside and walk. The same with privacy. And there will be always jurisdictions where will want you not to go out, not to do this, not to dress in this way, and so on and so on. And this is majority countries in the world.
It reminds me of the libertarian notion or ANCAP notion, whatever label you want to put on it, but the non-aggression principle, a society based on the non-aggression principle, the thinkers that have thought about these things, they've come up with there's only one true human right, and one that can be universal, meaning true for all people in all countries at all times, and it's the right to be left alone, which is basically the non-aggression principle. You are not allowed to violate my property. So if you have that in your natural law as your foundation for ethics, then I think that sort of supersedes all the other so-called rights in the plural sense of the form, including free speech, because the obvious follow-up question, and this is a Rothbardian thought, he pointed out that everyone forgets the follow-up question: free speech where? And free speech is only applicable to public spaces. And if you don't believe that any space really is public, it's all private gangs, and that all the governments are illegitimate, then there's no such thing as free speech. The only thing that matters is property rights, so that I get to dictate whatever speech rules apply to my private property, including my social network or my. So from that perspective, I think it might be more effective and more on point to fight for absolute property rights than to fight for free speech. What do you think about that? Is this something you agree to, or to a certain extent, or what are your thoughts?
It's very complicated, because property rights come in when you have ability to defend your property. You just will not have property if you have no rights to speak and to defend yourself. I saw so many times, and my family experienced so much when there was a different kind of radar attack from the side of the government or gangs in Crimea. They were all the time, not single day was for me normal, right? I was always going to sleep and understand in the morning or during the night, I have to wake up and run with my passport somewhere in a safe place until I will be allowed to come back home, maybe, if it will be my home at all. So this is understanding of many people in the world who are not living in these privileged Western countries. So, it makes you different perspective. It makes you different feeling why you actually value that you can hold Bitcoin, and, for example, or you can have these privacy communication tools. And you understand that conditions to create this Bitcoin, to develop it, to have a brilliant minds who would have the best possible education, who will be not repressed, not put in prison just because they're criticizing their brilliant minds. They will have brilliant teachers, infrastructure to become this, to polish this diamond mind, right? You have to have conditions.
Yeah, I guess so. Another example, I'm sorry for taking devil's advocate positions all the time here,
I think
but
it's more entertaining for everybody, guys. Write comments.
It makes for good conversation. So if you look back at the at BitTorrent files, 20 years ago, a big fight about piracy, when DVDs were still a thing, it was forbidden to copy movies and stuff.
Yes.
And then comes along the Pirate Bay, which only provided links, by the way, no actual files stored ever. It's just links. And then other people owning parts of movies that were unrecognizable as such until you had assembled the entire movie. So you had all this file sharing culture, and it still exists today. And in the beginning, they tried to target a lot of these people. The Pirate Bay people got sued. A bunch of others were made example of in liberal Western democracies. Germany had prosecution firms sending out warning letters to all sorts of people who had been found guilty of copying a movie. And today it sounds sort of ludicrous, no police force in the Western world would ever attack someone for just owning a movie file anymore. It's like something you never hear about anymore. It's just not happening. And I think that's because so many people reach some form of critical mass where you realize that this is unstoppable.
Mass.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the same thing sort of happened at the end of COVID, which is sort of a mass psychosis thing where everyone was wearing masks and everyone was following the rules until suddenly There was enough of a critical mass for it to all end everywhere. And that process
yes, but there was
quick,
protest.
where people started.
You remember how much protest?
Yeah, there were protests, but there's a single.
But this is critical mass who was protesting. They changed the rules. They also got repressed. They got repressed.
I'm getting to a point here. So I think this critical mass is smaller than people think it is. So it might be like 5 to 10% of the population.
Yes.
You don't need a majority for things to change, really. You just need to get the snowball rolling, which was definitely the case with the masks, where people just removed them at the airport and didn't care anymore when people told them to put them on, because the whole thing was too ridiculous for even the people tasked with enforcing it to give a shit about it, because it's so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So then it stops because of ridicule. And I think like Bitcoin is probably on the same path. I mean, all the kids growing up today, they grow up with Bitcoin. They will never have known a reality where it doesn't exist. So they have been able to transact with each other since they were kids. And kids learn fast. So I see of course, this is more powerful emancipation tool than BitTorrents or no masks ever were. But still, it's something where I think there is a critical mass where it becomes unstoppable, because people use it between each other, and there's no way it makes economic sense for any force, no matter how monopolized the violence in the area is, to attack each and every citizen for doing something that they want to do. That makes you very unpopular, especially in a democracy. So what are your thoughts?
I absolutely agree. And even more, the reason why I really, every time coming to Bitcoin conferences, I feel like at home, because I believe that I'm actually around this critical mass of 3-5% of people who can and should make changes.
Yeah.
This is my audience, this is where I feel like at home, like mine. Maybe they still disbelieve in their rights, that they can change the rules, but they created already so much. They just need to do one more step to make a real power and actually create better conditions, to make this example that, okay, we did this society, Western civilization, is a perfect example others to follow, because we have our rights, we know how to have consensus, and everybody who create bad rulings and bad rules, they just have no value, right? They kind of immediately can be changed. Rules has to make this certain consensus and make common sense. And then you have this better chance for society to survive. Otherwise, you would have other society who is also not that much representative, but because they are active, they will be able to completely shift civilization focus. They will be completely able to change your reality, where you live, what you hear every morning, what news you read. What is your reality? They will completely change your world. And the question, what do you prefer? To be responsible? And actually, it's the same like in Bitcoin mining. You do your mining, you mine your rights, right? You protect your rights. Or you just flow in and somebody in doing it instead of you.
No, it's obvious to me that responsibility and freedom are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Like,
exactly.
You have to act responsibly to get your freedoms. And it was like Ronald Reagan who say that freedom is a fight that every generation needs to fight. It's like never ending. We can, as soon as we're complacent about it, we lose it. Because people will take it away.
If you don't have somebody who is investing in it, who and why should invest in it? If you don't have somebody who doing this effort, or you don't support them, how you can expect that those people will be many? If you don't actually share your knowledge, if you don't try to build this coalition, why you expect that this coalition will be created? There should be always somebody who is first. So I'm really, really calling everybody to be these kind of people. Let's unite. Let's unite, and we should really care about Western civilization, specifically in Europe, because US doing it great. They have a lot of organizations, private donors, experts who united their efforts, and they really look carefully what regulators and legislators doing. If they don't like it, they change it. In Europe, we just follow. We move. We don't defend our land.
Now we can't even remove bottle caps anymore.
Exactly. This is such a shame.
No.
Where will be this moment where we say, enough is enough?
Great news. The Bitcoin Infinity Show has a new lead sponsor. This is BitVault. a new multi-sig wallet that lets you not only put Bitcoins into cold storage, but into super duper polar bear meat in your freezer type cold storage using the time lock function. This protects against $15 wrench attacks because the attacker doesn't know that you have this thing running in the background. So you can just secretly take back your Bitcoins while the attacker thinks he got it, sort of. So go to bitvault.sv to find out more. You can use code Infinity for a 10% discount. They have a pre-sale here that's still in beta, but you can get a lifetime deal for $199. This is 100% open source, 100% non-custodial, and there's zero counterparty risk. So what are you waiting for? Check out bitvault.sv right now. And speaking of private keys, you should, of course, take control of your private keys. And you do that by getting yourself a good old hardware wallet. And our favorite is the Bitbox. And they have a new edition called the Bitbox O2 Nova. The Bitbox O2 Nova has a tempered glass display, which is new and shiny. It has next level security because they have the latest security chip installed. And now it works directly with iOS. So you can plug it into your iPhone or your iPad directly, and it will work perfectly for you. It works on all other devices as well, Windows, Linux, Commodore 64, whatever. So go to bitbox.swiss and get a Nova right now. Use code Infinity for 5% off. And if all this responsibility sounds a little too much for you, we have a perfect service to recommend, and that is the bitcoinadvisor.com. These are nice fellows from down under, and they can help you with Bitcoin inheritance planning. It's a collaborative custody solution where you're still 100% in control. Go to the bitcoinadvisor.com to check them out. And I think you can use code Infinity there too. All right, back to the show. I'm very curious, this is something we haven't talked about yet. But as a human rights defender and as a believer in democracy and our ability to change things, what are your views on El Salvador and Bukele and what's going on there? Very curious about that.
I like to be expert on things which I know. So I just can say what I see from media, right? I've never been there. I'm not an expert on this region. And I really prefer to be to give opinions on things which I know. From what I saw, there is a lot of, from one side, human rights violations because it's kind of authoritarian style how he behaved. From other side, I hear a lot, and I have no chance to check it, right? He combat a lot of criminal and narco cartels activities. These people have no, compromise. They basically understand only power. It's the same like in Ukraine. If you don't use weapon against Russians because they come in to kill you, you have no chance to survive. So I don't know for which extent this parallel against criminals who were operating in El Salvador, and then they were placed in a very severe conditions, humiliating conditions in prison, cannot be analogy or can be. It's hard for me to judge because I've never been there. I'm very lucky, and I hope it will be like this. I will never be in front of any narco dealers. But I know what does it mean when somebody tried to attempt to kidnap you. I know what does it mean when somebody tried to come to take your property and destroy your business and other things. And I want to say these people, you can resist only with weapon. You cannot resist just with words. They will never listen to you. They will just shoot you. They will rape you and some other things you don't want to happen with you. So this is the reason why weapons exist. And with certain situations, you have to be able to protect you in different kind of means than just with words.
So do you, let me make the question a bit more general. Do you think there are regions or countries in the world where a benevolent dictator is like the only option? That the benevolent dictator comes and takes all the bad people away.
No, I don't justify dictatorship. No, I don't justify. I'm just commenting the way why Bukele right now criticized, right? The main reason why he was criticized, at least in my memory, what I remember from social media and public discussion, how he treated these criminals, these prisons condition, right? I have no clue for which extent there is. I just not expert as what's freedom of speech, because I know that little Bitcoiners come in there, they enjoy it. So I have no idea. I've never been there, right? In Cuba, everybody knows that there is no freedom. In China, everybody knows. In Turkey, it's the same, right? But I don't know how it's there. It's not my region.
I think the logic which the country justifies these actions to itself is if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs, sort of thing. So do you think that's that can ever be justified? That you imprison innocent people, like maybe 5% of the inmates are imprisoned wrongly or unjustly, but on the other hand, you stop the murders. Like, where do you draw the line between what's good and what's bad, and what's just and what's unjust in such a situation?
I'm not a judge. I'm just a human. I'm not even pretend to be so, right? So again, it's very difficult for me just to discuss it on the terms of words, because for me, I mean, I know the price of life, right? And the innocent person should not be in prison. And my job is for many years was to remove innocent people from prisons. So I'm certainly not the person who will support it. But I understand that in any kind of wars, always, this is unfortunately, you want it or you don't want it, innocent people die. And we need to do everything possible and impossible to make it as less as possible. So less victims of this kind of actions.
All right. Once again, one thing to another. Another thing I'm very curious about to discuss with someone like you is bigger or smaller countries. In Europe, there's a handful of them with smaller cantons or smaller subsets of the country that want to emancipate themselves and break out of the bigger country. I know in Canada, for instance, there's a movement in Alberta to make Alberta a separate state. In the U.S., there's a small movement in Texas that wants to make Texas an entirely different country. I guess there's part of other parts of the country who just wants to remove California from the equation entirely, and so on and so forth. You have Catalonia here in Europe, and Scotland, and a handful of others. What are your thoughts on that? And like, when does it become legit for a subset of a nation to break out from its mother nation? And like, is the EU too big at this point? How dangerous is the EU? Should it have never existed in the first place? Like, what are your thoughts?
You look at the map of the world and you see Europe is just like this.
Yeah.
So why you say that it's too big? It's just super small.
Well, a Russian would say that in comparison to like everything else, right?
Russia,
at least in terms of
actually
land
the
mass.
biggest country in the world who is expanding, attacking neighbor countries constantly for the last decades. Like, what are we talking about? No, I think it's literally, you always have to zoom out, and I'm really against all these biases. I'm not buying them because I grew up in Sevastopol, and there was separatist movements enhanced by Russian constantly. And I saw who was actually, in this case, from one side, and just also to make a disclaimer, from one side, I'm coming from the family of Ukrainian resistance, which was fighting, and my family was separated. So my grandma and my grandfather, because
this is part of why I'm so interested in this, because
so we were fighting for Ukrainian independence, right? While Ukraine was occupied partially by German, partially by Soviet Union. So people were dying to have back their sovereign state. And it's there, it will be there. And again, it's motivation of people who showing consistently, who are ready to pay the price of their life, of people who they love and so on, to get this. I think this is at the moment, and the same like in the past, was the reason you achieve it or you don't achieve it, because you have enough people who are able to defend this territory. It's the same like this defense of your rights. This is why I'm saying you cannot defend your property rights if you don't have freedom of speech, because to defend your property rights, you have to say publicly, it's mine. It's mine, it belongs to me. If you have no right to say so, who and why should know that your right for property was violated. So the same with other countries. If they believe that they are separate territories and there is enough amount of people who believe that for some reason they want to change this consensus of the rules, they disagree with these rules, then they will change it, no matter what rules they are. And that's why if Europe right now is comfortable, if there will be other influencers who will want to change your rules, how you live, they will completely change the landscape of Europe. Because they are proactive and they will destroy your consensus and they will put their consensus. And this is what's happening. That's why we have right now kidnapping like in Venezuela, in France, where you have one of the most sophisticated, equipped with all civilians tools, police and state, one of the most regulated financial entities who can control every single of your transactions. And still, you have kidnapping, first of all, happening on the territory of France. And targeting not just the most high-profile people, right? Not the richest one, but even tens of thousands of euros people, right? So they trade with lives, with the amount of money. You would never think that this is amount of money to decide is person going to live or not. So we have Venezuelan, Latin American standards coming and being normal in the very heart of Europe. And it's showing shift of consensus. If French people not going to be active in defending their privacy rights, in defending their freedoms, they were known on the entire world, they will be just a legend, old legend, not actual anymore country with this consensus of rule. This will be history. It will be past, not present, not future. And it's going to be the same with every single European country. This is where we are, because we have majority of the countries in the world who want to destroy our civilization, because we were there to be happy, to be successful, to have consensus, and to undermine other regimes, showing that you can live in another way where you respect rights. It's not profitable for these regimes.
No, I agree. Like what Winston Churchill allegedly said, that democracy is the worst form of government except all others that have been tried.
Exactly.
Having said that, I'm curious, do you ever think that a system will appear that will supersede democracy, that will like be a better system, or at least an even less worse system than democracy?
It all depends on people. Why we have better money like Bitcoin? Because people created this technology. It means, again, for me, as a human defender, as a freedom tech advocate, we are going to live in digital world. We need to have this space where society would be able to think, to create something better. If you are at the age of survival, if you understand that tomorrow you're going to be kidnapped, if your business can be taken over, if your property is going to be destroyed, if your family values is not anymore, something what your neighbors will actually believe in and will try to destroy and undermine them, it means that you have no time to create. It means that you have no time even to think about something better.
No,
how you will even do it.
What we Austrian economists would call a high time preference, a super high time preference. And that's like all over the Austrian thinkers' literature, that the more that is taken away from you on a regular basis through taxes and inflation or just pure confiscation, the higher your time preference becomes. Like a person who is robbed of everything they have and is just naked in nature, with their top priority becomes to find food and shelter, and those needs will trump all other needs. So
Exactly.
They will do whatever they can to survive, which means they're more prone to be criminal, more prone to do stupid things and short-term things. Whilst if you're in a society with strong property rights, where it's super hard to take your stuff, you can afford to conjure up things such as Bitcoin or Nostr. Like you can think more long-term, and you can afford to be more altruistic, more philanthropic, or whatever your personality is, to be more, I don't know, to make more comedy movies, like whatever your thing is.
Majority of philanthropists with whom I talk, by the way, I have to give credit that we got donations from American philanthropists, not European. We have just
because of strong property rights.
Yes, because they said we have and we can give. You know what's European business people, rich people saying me? I don't have incentives. I said, so you don't have incentives to protect your privacy? No, I know that Americans will do it. I said, no, they actually will not do it. And this is what's happening, for example, since last year. They stopped giving donations for work in Europe because there are a lot of wealthy people. They don't want to put any single euro to defend their rights. Why I should do it? And they ask right questions. So it's about responsibility. Of course you can move. You can move to US, but then you have to live in traditions of US. You will have to donate for other organizations because everybody will look at you. What? You rich and you don't donate? You don't support activists there who defend your privacy and your rights? How come? But if you come back to Europe, you actually can come and enjoy and don't do it, right? Because you expect that somebody, state or who else, has to give and do all this job for you. Why? That's why we have a lot of money from, Qatar, Azerbaijan. They fund a lot of so-called NGOs. But what these NGOs promoting there? One of the biggest donors in the European Union is China.
Yeah.
What you want to have here as a society where you have Chinese money funding campaigns, funding media, and funding ruling process. So how rules are created, they doing lobbying here. So why you complain that you don't like rules there? What you have done to change this consensus of society, to protect your values created by your grandparents who was given and sacrificed their life, money, property, so you can enjoy it right now together with your family.
Yeah, I think that's what giving away your responsibilities to outsourcing your responsibilities to the state does. Like if you delegate that to a third party, you're going to get used. Like they're going to exploit that.
But Americans look on the fence on what state is doing. If they don't agree, they just change it. So why Europeans cannot do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. But I think that goes hand in hand with our high trust in institutions here. I think Americans, like just given the Second Amendment, they have an inherent distrust in institutions. The "don't tread on me" mindset is already there. It's in their culture that they should be responsible for their own lives. It's like land of opportunity and leave me alone type of culture in comparison to Europe, which and to be fair, Europe has big trust chains, which sort of creates a stable society for a long time. If I can trust my neighbor and my postal delivery service, if I can trust
in Belgium,
several steps of institutions, then I can lower my time preference because of that. But speaking of the time preference, this is the question I had in my mind goes everywhere here because I love this conversation. But speaking of property rights versus free speech rights, right now you have a lot of people fleeing the Middle East for Europe. But you also have rich Europeans fleeing Europe for Dubai. And you don't see a lot of refugees from Dubai in Europe, right? And I think this is because they by their actions, they show that they value property rights more than free speech, because Dubai has very limited free speech when it comes to actually criticizing the government and stuff like that. But they do have very strong property rights, low taxes, and you're allowed to own your own shit to a high extent there. So aren't the rich Europeans moving there, showing by their actions rather than their words that they actually value property rights higher than free speech? What are your thoughts on that?
So again, the same like on El Salvador, I'm not an expert on Middle East, and I don't have much experience in work in Dubai. I just had to release three people
it's just
in
one
extradition.
example.
No. I just want to be precise because it's very good to be specific, right? So everybody think about there is no refugees and so on, like just you said about Dubai. But in my experience as human defender, I've had cases where very successful business people were going to Dubai and they were lost rights for their properties. They were not able to defend themselves. And it happens not only with rich people, it's middle-class people and just workers. There was no ability how to defend it. And we used all possible at that time diplomatic sources to free these people from detention facilities in Dubai. And it was a nightmare. And it was one of the most difficult. It was more difficult for me to release people from Dubai than from Russia, from North Ossetia, just to compare. So every time when I see people in travel into this direction, I really admire how brave they are. Good PR and good promotion of the state, who understand the rules, how to attract money and serve them with immediate need. It doesn't mean that your rights for property actually guarantee. And what will happen with you when you cross the road or somebody just doesn't like you, like it was in case of one person, that's one sheikh or somebody from local important people, they didn't like another person or they were fighting about something. He ended up in prison. It was extremely difficult to get out him from there. So this is my experience.
It's a good perspective to hear because it's a perspective you don't hear very often from Dubai enthusiast.
I try to be very specific. I'm not abstract. Yeah. If I don't know about country, I cannot say. But if I had experience, I'm sharing it. That's it.
Yeah. Good things to think about. So but vote with your, if we are to sum this conversation up, then there is an alternative to voting with your feet. And that's actually standing your ground where you are and taking the fight there and really try to influence your local politicians.
Exactly. And we're happy to help to become for you as a, not just Bitcoiner, but actually ambassador of freedom tech. Because you are Bitcoiner, you already by definition, you're a freedom tech ambassador. You just need to do one more step to use your citizen right to protect and your new consensus or to create consensus of rules, not only on Bitcoin network, but also in your society work, why you want this rule or not this one. How to make it comfortable for all of us. We need to do this effort. I'm calling everybody to join us and make this happen here in Europe.
Yeah, and I can only speak for myself, but I think I speak for most Bitcoiners when I say that I think most Bitcoiners would be a single issue voter if there was ever a party in a European country that was promised that they wouldn't ever that they would abolish first and foremost capital gains taxes on Bitcoin, so that making it actually useful as money throughout that country. I think every single
possible.
Bitcoiner
This is the most beautiful thing. It's possible. We just need to join this effort.
Yeah, and I think every single Bitcoiner in the country would vote for that. And we're getting. There's more of us every day.
Proof of talk is one thing. Proof of work. I want to see the Bitcoiners who are ready to work, not just proof of talk.
I want proof of results. That's what I want. I think that's what makes the free market system so beautiful. Anyway, Lyudmyla, is there anywhere on the internet or anything else you'd like to talk about before we wrap this thing up? Let's start there.
No, I want to ask everybody to write in comments what you like the most about this discussion, what do you agree, disagree, but be constructive and answer me one question. How are you going to join us and support this consensus, common sense rulings and rights in Europe? What we're going to do with you as a homework to make these things happen?
Yes, subscribe, brush your teeth, and comment below, please. Where do you want to send our listeners on the internet? Is there a website, or where do you want them to go? Where can they find out more about you, more about the organizations you work for?
Damus, of course, and Nostr account. You can find a lot of information there. You can reach out to me on Telegram, and you can reach out to me on X. So I'm available on social media, and I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to build this coalition of freedom tech embassies in Europe and make these things happen. We need to defend our privacy of payment, privacy of communication, and protect our travel data so nobody will kidnap us, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lyudmyla, for coming to the show. And I hope to see you in real life soon again. But till next we meet, thank you very much for doing this. And good luck in all of your endeavors.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
This has been the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thanks for listening.